In the wake of the new millennium, during the so-called sixth console generation, there was this reinvigorating new wave of game design philosophy originating in Japan. This was, however, no unified movement, and is rather just a retroactive observation. The catalyst seemingly being how more advanced technology made way for previously unexplored game concepts. And it does make sense. The previous generation had been all about figuring out the rudimentary aspects of 3D environments and how to convert old conventions and franchises to that format. So once the training wheels were off, why not try to create experiences that could never have existed prior? Of course, people try to make games in all kinds of ways, so unifying what would define this completely arbitrary movement is first and foremost just for our own benefit. We look for patterns and think of it as intentional genius. The common denominator for these games would be the Iwata coined term, non-games. Software that places themselves outside the idea of games as competitive or challenges, but more as toys, or more fittingly, virtual playgrounds. These are games that, in their core design of interaction and movement, are considered entertaining enough to not need a conventional framework to feel complete. And even though they still might have pre-established goals, they could be seen as secondary or even redundant. The idea is that the game is more fun to play than the pursuit of goals within it. Or there simply are no clear goals that would obstruct such play activities. Core examples for this playground philosophy would be Doshin the Giant, Animal Crossing, Hippolinda, Mr. Mosquito, Cubivore, Tulip, Graffiti Kingdom, and more. But the crowning jewel is easily Katamari Damacy. This is a game that frames the blissfully simple fun of rolling perpetually growing balls in an arcade package that rewards skill and strategy for players seeking that challenge. In that way, Katamari is approachable to both core and casual audiences in its complete utter wackiness, without being seen as obtuse or purposeless. It is honestly a masterpiece of game design, and there's no wonder it became an instant classic, skyrocketing director Keita Takahashi to auteur status within the business. Not surprisingly, he went even further off the deep end with the significantly more unconventional Nobby Nobby Boy, before just wanting to design real on-location playgrounds instead of games. We're honestly not sure Keita Takahashi is enamored with the video game medium, as much as it's just the most feasible channel for him to express his ideas of play through. You know, he gives off the vibes of this nice man who made a terrifically fun toy for kids, but is then pestered by adult engineers trying to deconstruct and shard that magic. But that's just how things turned out, and we would be lying if we didn't say that we mostly gave his latest game Watama a chance, mainly because it was good old Keita Takahashi spearheading the project. We're basically always ready to hear him out on any wacky new shenanigans he has in store for us, and then we praise it as divine brilliance. So what is Watame? It's basically a sandbox for exploring all the little pieces of everyday life through control, Think of it as a more structured and playful take on 2017's everything. You wanna be the stone or the tree? You can be it. Eat people to turn into poop? Do it. Blow yourself up? Why yes, absolutely. Climb all over the place and complete little tasks to make the characters happy. It's simple, adorable, and wholesome. It fills the playground quota, the hat bomb is very fun, and kids will absolutely love the poop thing. And there's also this deep lore about a fragmented post-apocalyptic world that has to be reconnected by the player. There's even like a game mechanic for holding hands with the other characters. Really, beyond the playfulness, the idea of Wattam is to reunite the world and make everyone get along better. So we'd completely, unironically, consider this the better Strand-type game of 2019. Wattam is seriously just better at it.
Bullshit.
Mirroring comments by Hideo Kojima about Death Stranding, an interview with Keita Takahashi suggested that Wattam is a form of critique commentary on contemporary global politics, on the way that we are unable to communicate with each other without fighting, and of the rift between American Democrats and Trump supporters. However, Takahashi then added that he didn't want to add such a direct message in the game for the risk of it being annoying, which we liberally choose to interpret as a big fat, "Things ain't that simple, mate." And even then, Wattam is an obvious allegory, with its major themes of conflict and unification. The backstory being what happens when Mother Earth goes missing after being attacked by the moon, and all the inhabitants of the world are left to mend the pieces. It's deliberately on the nose about its conclusion, but not so much on the means. One person may read Wattam as environmentalism, while another sees it as another form of political commentary. And in that sense, it is a game that is quite fun to go nuts about. Like the extensively symbolic gesture of the sun and major, symbols of power, repeatedly stealing the telephone character's receiver, hindering that communication that is seen as so important. On a more clear and bold level, there is the surprising language choices. The game world of Wattam is divided into 4 seasons, each one with characters representing a different real-life culture, with names and speech. English, Russian, Korean, and Japanese, either as a reflection of the Japanese Takahashi and American publishers Annapurna, or as a choice for what audiences are most likely to play the game. It's really interesting to see this game of vibrant fantasy people reverberate intense historical conflicts between the United States and Russia, as well as the less famous relationship between Japan and Korea. It's really bad. There is, however, no apparent conflict between these cultures in the game. Rather, they get along fine, and the different languages present no actual barrier. They understand each other without problem, which angles the depiction of these cultures like an utopian view, where the historical divide seems to never have existed in the first place. Or at least, it has been ironed out. But that's perhaps also the point of how conflict is portrayed in the game. The childish exterior is as deliberate as the keys that enable real-world comparison. We're kinda staring an obvious conclusion right in the face when we're taking tidbits of such a pure and innocent game and reading societal pain into it. Because that's very much what it is. From the prince rolling up all the countries into one by the end of Katamari Damacy, to the mass group project of building something together in Nobi Nobi Boy, the almost frustrated desire of having people get together in Keita Takahashi's games go hand in hand with their childlike exterior. Perhaps that's exactly the lens through which we must also view a game like Wattam. That way, the additional themes of Wattam that don't really fit an adult worldview get a better context. For example, there's a constant recurring idea of absence and missing within the narrative of the game. You begin alone and are gradually reunited with all the redundant but important aspects of everyday life. From a stone or a pillow to friends and family, sometimes we don't exactly know what we have until it's gone, and at other times we don't know what we missed until we are again reunited with it. Watam is simple in that sense. It's hard for you to emulate the actual feeling of your union, but it can encourage us to ourselves try to remember how that feels. It presents its world and conflict through a child's eye, and then asks us to perhaps equally remember what it was like to be a child. At the climax, when trying to resurrect Mother Earth, the characters are confronted with the moon, the antagonist who previously destroyed the planet. It however turns out that Moon had been driven by basically all of the deadly sins except lust, and is now in deep regret and internal turmoil over having done the bad. The player is then given 4 options for solving that conflict, which at first glance looks like a hysterical tonal shift for the game. But you know, the more you think about it, the more it fits. Even though all outcomes are supposedly the same, the game still puts importance in the player getting to choose how they are to respond to hurtful behavior. It's equally teaching children how to resolve conflict as much as it shows adults how children ultimately view conflict. It would be easy to compare the moon to large-scale corporations and corrupt politicians who destroyed our world by putting it in the broken state it is now. But the more sensible reading would be that the moon is just a stand-in for when we, the everyday people, do bad things and beg for forgiveness. And if we revert back to the overly political messages, perhaps a potential conclusion of Keita Takahashi being a filthy centrist who wants you to hug Donald Trump might be too hasty. Because it's not just Takahashi talking through Watam, he's letting a child's worldview refract through that game. It's hard to imagine a world where you can get along with people who vote against your values, or worse, to infringe on your human rights. We sincerely don't hope to believe the message of Watam to be that bigots should be forgiven by the oppressed minorities, because it's not a question of having different opinions, it's about allowing people to even exist. Maybe the takeaway is rather that such conflicts shouldn't even exist, because especially in the world portrayed in Watam, they should be violently incompatible with the concept of just getting along. Watam doesn't have a simple direct message of holding hands with world leaders, because that's the naive impression of how the world should be. A centrist reading would be more an effect of us as adults knowing that the real world ain't so simple than what would fit inside a childlike worldview. By that effect, we should read the jolly world of Watam where people are just happy to see each other as idealism rather than centrism. It's a simpler world than the one we live in, and that means that the worst problems have no place. Watam isn't asking us to compromise people's happiness and rights to live. That would be horrible. It's rather asking us to imagine a world without any of that. Instead of direct comparisons to real-life politics, we are rather given stand-ins that can apply both globally and for everyday life. Though by effect, no matter how purely idealistic you perceive the childish world of Watam to be, it's still inherently colored by real-life politics. It's unavoidable, we can't help to find it everywhere. And that's the biggest tragedy of it. In every nook and cranny, the child media of Watam is tainted by the adult world. The impression is that the world in itself is just so bad that not even the utopian vision of Watam can escape it. Although, on the other hand, that might just be us adults again, being unable to truly return to an idealistic, carefree world. After all, we are forcing our grand ideas on a game where you turn people into poop. So yes, in a sense, it's deserved for us to get an equally basic solution to world conflict when asking that same source for it. It's a child's world after all, and the kids will probably be alright with it. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. We want to thank all of our patrons who made this video possible. And they are Ali Menful, Andreas Argolander, Anonymous, Andrew Jones, Ashel Seasucker, Lafayette, Aaron Rain, Bald Space Marine 33, Basklin, Ben Clark, Ben personally approves this message, Biopanda, Botch Frivarg, Baba Kenzie, Casey Explosion, Clara Rose, Chloe, Cult of the Hyena, David J. Bradley, Ember, Emil Olin, Emrasa, Flynn Flamberge, Floofquist, Gage McColgan, Goblin, Guffic Garfield, Huang Wu, Isak Abrahamsson, Jerry Olsson, Joel Nilsson, Karen Scholz, Iantu, Loke, Magnus, Mar B, Mattias Graman, Maximilian John, Melang Rubin, Meowmix64, Miko, Morgan, Nate Kiernan, Nishtsvat, Oscar Funes Galindo, Preston Manes, Riley Rose Smith, Ro, Sweet Pink, Silly Rookie, Starfighter, TB Skyen, That Jess, Tobias Mattsson, Tommy Håkansson, Trash Baby, Tough Emily, Vexelbun, and Syfy. If you want to join all of these lovely people, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/transparens. When you do so, we will read your name and you get access to our Discord where you can talk to a bunch of lovely people as well as Kiki and me. Thanks again for watching. Say thanks, Kiki.
Thanks!
Bye.